Here in the iconic Mojave Wasteland, to the soft southwest along the old Nevada 160, lies one of the Fallout franchise's most beloved locations, the small sleepy town of Goodsprings. A humble, dilapidated, dust-caked settlement just a stone's throw away from the menacing glow of the New Vegas Strip. But in a hostile world such as this, where man and monster alike seek to dominate, kill, or control, Goodsprings is a place that has remained miraculously untouched by all the chaos of post-apocalyptic politics. It's peaceful and quaint, it's out of the way and kind of unimportant. The little town that acts as essentially an immersive tutorial level for one of the most celebrated video game adventures ever. But today, years and years after New Vegas' initial release, Goodsprings, I think, has proved to be something so much more. A virtual location that has embedded itself in the hearts of fans all over the world. I'm talking merchandise, tattoos, and now an annual physical pilgrimage to the real Goodsprings, Nevada to create community and appreciate all the magic of New Vegas. A town that has come to represent something so rare in this brutal setting of Fallout, a real sense of peace and a sense of home. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Worldpedia. This is a video series where we look at all kinds of virtual spaces across video game history to discuss the layout, the lore, and overall what makes these places truly special or memorable for us. I am Ghost, your host as always. I do want to give a quick thank you to all of my fantastic patrons really quick who help this channel out so much by supporting me away from YouTube. If you watching this right now appreciate what I do here and you want to help me keep doing it, this is the best way to do so. And now, partner, all I ask is that you join me up here with Easy Pete, crack open a cold one of whatever you like to drink the most, as we learn all about the one and the only Goodsprings. Well, before anything else, I think we should take a look at the shape and design of this virtual town, just so we can get a good handle on what we are going to be talking about here. Now, as I mentioned, Goodsprings is small. I mean, very small. It's made up of just 16 intact buildings, and only about half of those you can actually go inside of. There's also a few ruined structures here and there, some Jetstream trailers, old rusty cars sitting around, and one tirelessly spinning Courage the Cowardly dog-looking-ass windmill. Now, that doesn't make this the smallest settlement in New Vegas. That distinction belongs to the lovely little city of Nipton. But Goodsprings here is certainly compact, I would say. The north end of town is where you can find the few amenities offered here, the Goodsprings General Store, the Poseidon Energy gas station, as well as that famous Prospector Saloon, while the south side is made up of settler homes as well as an old ruined schoolhouse. Now, I know that I said Goodsprings is located to the southwest of this game's map, but it's really more on like the hard western border, sitting in this nice little pocket of red rock mountains and hilly terrain, giving it an almost fortified and private feeling. But in this area, it's actually not just the town. Goodsprings also includes a small hill to the north, the site of the Goodsprings Cemetery, which looks right toward the Strip. Goodsprings Cave to the southeast, which is horrible. It's just a place where locals go to get absolutely murdered by these coyotes. And then to the south, you have the Goodsprings Source, a natural water spring which gave the town both its drinking water and its name. Now, within the lore of Fallout, Goodsprings was settled sometime after the Great War of 2077, when the New California Republic, or NCR, was establishing a little mining operation around these parts and wanted access to radiation-free drinking water. But this game takes place some 200 years after the bombs all dropped, so Goodsprings as we know it has been going strong for, I would guess, about 100 years, maybe a little bit less, which is incredibly impressive for being in the middle of such a violent desert full of criminals, mutants, and little wise guys like this.
Hey, how you doing?
It's implied that Goodsprings has stayed afloat all these years thanks simply to trade, and also not being wealthy or large enough for any nasty characters to want to target it or take it over or anything. You know, probably just folks coming through this area on their way to New Vegas or on their way back out, staying for an hour or two for a drink, an exchange of goods, and then hitting the road again. You know, a place where few would ever think to stick around. And that is made clear to us by there being only 11 NPCs, including a dog, that live here, but we're going to get to them in a second. Now, there's something definitely to be said for any starting area in any video game having a strong resonance with the player simply because it's the beginning, right? Pallet Town in Pokemon or Kokiri Forest in Ocarina of Time are really great sort of similar examples. But that sense of connection, I think, is especially strong in big open world RPGs like this, where it feels like much more of a personal journey. You're creating your protagonist, you're building a headcanon of who they might be, how they do their business, and kind of sending an extension of yourself into the world. And to push that idea a little bit further, I think the way that New Vegas specifically opens its narrative, well, it kind of requires the player to have a deep appreciation for Goodsprings. Because it's no secret that in the intro cutscene, you, the courier, are brutally shot in the head, thrown in a grave, and left to bleed out by old Bugsy Bing over here.
Why don't you give me your underpants?
And the location of that legendary scene, well, that is the Goodsprings Cemetery. This right here is the hole that you were left to die in. But lucky for you, a local heard this commotion that night. They waited until trouble cleared out, came up the hill, grabbed your body out of the Grim Reaper's grip, and took you to the house of Doc Mitchell, the town surgeon who then performed a life-saving brain operation, and thus the game is allowed to begin. So in the simplest narrative sense, Goodsprings saves your life. It sets you up to have the opportunity to go on this quest, to look into your attempted murder for answers, for revenge, for redemption, or for whatever else you want. It really is one of the greatest starts of any video game out there. The way this medical evaluation post-op determines your appearance and your name, and then you use that Vitomatic to build your stats. I love how these things flick around. And then you got those Rorschach tests that never have the answer I want. I mean, this image right here, this is two bears with giraffe heads high-fiving and laughing their asses off, nothing else.
What?
By the way, did you know that Herman Rorschach, the creator of those famous 10 inkblot images, looked a lot like Brad Pitt and died at 37 of a ruptured appendix years before his work would become world famous? Anyway, it really is good stuff. And after Doc fixes you up right, he goes the extra mile in gifting you his old Pip-Boy as well as the clothes off his back as you head for the front door and get to experience this. Oh shit, let me get through these. Damn, alright, I get it. Jesus, man. Anyway, you get to experience this, the disorienting moment of that sun hitting you in the face, the dust kicking up. And right in front of you is, of course, the heart of Goodsprings. Now, you are absolutely welcome to just mosey straight out of town at this point. There ain't no rules in the Wild West, partner. However, the main questline does insist that you hold your horses, that you stick around these parts to learn the ropes, to start looking into that strange man who tried to murder you the other night, to get a nice little primer on the lore of New Vegas, and of course, get acquainted with all the inhabitants of Goodsprings. Well, we just met Doc Mitchell, the town surgeon who actually grew up inside of one of the vaults, Vault 21 to be specific, down by the Strip, a real great guy by all accounts. Then you meet Sunny Smiles, a well-intentioned trapper and hunter who prides herself on keeping this town safe along with her dog Cheyenne, and she's really the one in charge of taking you through all of the tutorials. You know, she brings you out back to shoot some bottles, then you help her clean out some geckos down by the water sources, and she teaches you how to craft stuff as well. You have Trudy, the tough as nails, no-nonsense owner of the Prospector Saloon, who's kind of like the unofficial mayor and mama bear of Goodsprings, as she tries her best to look after everybody and everything. Then you have my favorite, the legend Easy Pete, a retired prospector and salvager and professional Caesar's Legion hater who loves to just sit out on the porch, shoot the breeze, drink a bunch of beer, and, well, take it easy. There's Chet, who honestly kind of sucks, the shopkeeper who's mostly concerned about business and just doesn't seem to care as much for his fellow Goodspringers.
Howdy, partner. Might I say you're looking fit as a fiddle?
And then finally, you have Victor, a fascinating character that the other residents here just don't quite understand. A Securitron bot with a happy-go-lucky cowboy persona operating system. It was Victor who saved your life that night. He pulled you out of that hole, and spoiler alert, Victor is one of the many servants of the mysterious Mr. House, a massively influential character in New Vegas who is very much responsible for your courier's involvement in the larger narrative of the game. And in that way, I think it's very interesting how even this early in Goodsprings, these bigger players in the Mojave are making things happen from the shadows. But that is a story for another time. The rest of the population is rounded out by a couple of unnamed Goodsprings settlers who just kind of stand around, farm, and add some connective tissue to the area. But, well, if Goodsprings is meant to be a sort of tutorial, and this is a Fallout game, things can't be all hunky-dory here, right? This ain't the damn Andy Griffith show. And yes, trouble has recently blown into town, and his name is Joe Cobb. Cobb is a career criminal, a gangster who was locked up in a nearby NCR-controlled correctional facility until a massive prison break occurred, allowing he and his cronies to form the Powder Gangers, a ragtag group of criminals that have since been attacking travelers and traders on the stretch of the old I-15 highway just to the east of Goodsprings. Well, what he wants is a man named Ringo, a member of the Crimson Caravan Traders who during one of these recent attacks began to fight back and killed several of Cobb's men, so he wants revenge. Well, you come to learn that Trudy is allowing Ringo to hide out in the old gas station, and that guy is ready to kill Cobb to protect himself, no problem. So it's a pretty tense situation, one that needs a solution, like right now. And thus, Goodsprings offers you not only the first real quest of the game, but your first real choice. Turning Ringo over will satisfy Cobb enough to have him just go on his way, but will likely result in the man's death and the continuation of the powder gangers causing problems. But if you want to stand with Ringo and fight these dudes off, you're going to have to try to convince the other peace-loving residents here to help you out. I mean, Cobb warns that any confrontation is going to result in Goodsprings being burned to the ground, so there's some stakes. It's a great crash course on how no choice in New Vegas is ever perfect or without risk. You know, the wasteland is violent, people are unpredictable and complex, and I also love how this situation reveals the true character of the Goodspringers. Chet wants absolutely nothing to do with it and takes some very hard convincing, little bitch. But Sunny is immediately ready to throw down because she understands that if they don't take out Cobb now, he's gonna come for Goodsprings eventually. Trudy is pretty easily convinced, Doc wants to offer you medical supplies, Easy Pete is willing to give you dynamite to blow these fools apart as long as you know how to handle this stuff. It becomes a community event, really. And should you take the high road here, well, I'm gonna be honest, the fight is very easy. It's the tutorial after all. Cobb and his boys appear at the edge of town, making their way in, and you just get to go clean their clocks, son. You then acquire your first real loot in the game, Ringo is free to stay or go, and you justifiably become well-liked in Goodsprings. Now, if you side with Cobb, listen man, that's your personal business, alright? No need to talk to me or anyone else about it. But zooming out at this whole intro, I mean, I love the storytelling absurdity of this random-ass delivery guy getting shot in the head up the hill, being saved by the weird-ass robot who lives at the edge of town, getting revived from his coma to then immediately take up arms like that afternoon and murder all the local rabble-rousers. That's a hell of a start for the hero and probably the most eventful week in the entire history of Goodsprings. I also think it's amazing how well this place introduces you to everything the beginner needs to know in a short 15 or less minutes. You know how dialogue works, skill checks, combat, VATs, karma, repairing, and crafting, as well as giving you a super clear preview of all the factions of New Vegas. NCR, the Legion, the struggle for Hoover Dam, you even get a mention of Mr. House and how no one has ever seen him before apparently. Victor represents all that weird-ass retro sci-fi tone that's going to be present all throughout the rest of the game. Goodsprings is great because it isn't some isolated training cell that then spits you out into the real game or any sort of instance tutorial. It's a legitimate part of things, and after you move on from this tutorial toward Prim and then far, far beyond, I mean, Goodsprings is still just there. You can come back for a visit anytime you like. If you haven't played New Vegas yourself, or maybe it's just been a few years since your last playthrough, I gotta tell you man, while putting this video together, I realized that there really is something special in the virtual air here. While recording this stuff, I turned off my Pip-Boy radio so I didn't accidentally pick up any copyrighted music, and it struck me to the core how calming the blowing wind and ambient sound was. I mean, listen to this. And it's not that these things are unique to Goodsprings, it's the things that are not present. No deathclaws breathing down my neck, no fascist slavers in skirts spewing their rhetoric, no pressing tasks to complete. It's just me in the sunshine. Victor roving around on his little wheel over there, Pete smoking a bowl on the porch or whatever the hell he's up to. After this initial excitement with Cobb, there is absolutely nothing happening here at all for the rest of the game, and that really is a beautiful thing. I think I'm also a sucker for this kind of setting, you know, the crappy little frontier town and the desert too. I had family in New Mexico growing up and spent a lot of holiday seasons out there on amazing hikes and just deeply enjoying the scenery and the history. I don't know what it is, but something about this, it just works. Well, allow me to now make a comparison that you might roll your eyes at, but just bear with me, okay? In The Lord of the Rings, the Shire represents something vitally important in the narrative. You know this, it's pure, it's peaceful, and for the most part, it is untouched by all the evil that is spreading from Mordor. But most importantly, it gives the Hobbit characters something that in their mind is always worth fighting for. A home that they know they're protecting with every step they take away from it so that one day they can come back.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Now, Goodsprings absolutely sucks balls compared to the Shire. I'm not saying that they're the same, but within the context of the radiated post-apocalyptic desert, I promise you, it is a very similar sort of paradise. And you see for yourself as you continue on with your journey, all the freaks and punk-ass characters that you gotta deal with, the depraved, corpse-riddled towns being fought over by all these deeply problematic factions, terrifying creatures that want to rip you in half. I mean, seriously, when all is said and done, these people, not you, Chet, are legitimately the kindest characters probably in the entire game. And there is nowhere else you can find that's more pleasant. So, to me, it really is like the Shire of the Wasteland. During my initial playthrough years ago on my Xbox, I absolutely imagined that my courier hoped to one day return. That after all the adventures and the massive decisions to determine the future of this region, he would disappear to the place that gave him that chance, able to finally just sit out on the porch and take a nice, long, deep breath. While making this video, I was reading other people's thoughts on Reddit, and I came across this comment that encapsulates beautifully how so many people out there feel the exact same way. My last RP playthrough only lasted a couple hours because I couldn't come up with an actual good reason why I should leave Goodsprings. Now, given all of that, I still think that the most interesting aspect of this Worldpedia topic by far is that it actually is a real location in Nevada. And pretty accurately, it sits just to the southwest of Las Vegas, nestled into what is called the Goodsprings Valley. Although there's no clear view of the strip, the Bird Spring mountain range is kind of, well, in the way. So when New Vegas was being initially developed, Joshua Sawyer, the project director and lead designer, apparently went on this big motorcycle tour of southern Nevada to scout different locations, and he came across this dying mining town that just struck a chord. When you look at the real thing, it is startlingly the same. The Prospector Saloon, in real life the Pioneer Saloon with the general store right next door, the historic schoolhouse. Now, one slight difference is the real Goodsprings Cemetery is oriented on the south side of the town instead of the north, and obviously the whole place is bigger than 16 buildings, but honestly not by much. As of 2020, the population here was sitting around 160, making it officially defined as an American ghost town, and I wouldn't be surprised if that number has gone down further. Historically speaking, Goodsprings is a very typical frontier settlement, founded in the late 19th century thanks to the discovery of precious metals. Lead, silver, zinc, copper, and of course gold attracted workers from all over the country to relocate and try to carve out a new life for themselves here. It started out as just a collection of shacks in the middle of nowhere, but eventually they got a post office, some streets, a hotel, a general store, and they were well on their way. Now, according to this old 1941 account of Nevada town names and their origins that I've found, the real Goodsprings got its name from a so-called pioneer named Joseph Good. And a separate Smithsonian Magazine source claims that Mr. Good's cattle would regularly wander off his range to a fresh water source in this area, so they came to call it Goodsprings. Goodsprings. In 1911, with the arrival of the railroad, Goodsprings would grow even more, with the population peaking at around 800 to 900 people. World War I provided a huge boost as lead was needed for ammunition production, and then again a few decades later with World War II. But in the 1950s, oh, get this man, extremely appropriate for Fallout, the area just outside of Goodsprings was used for large-scale atomic bomb tests by the US government. There's a fascinating article I dug up that I will link down below from the Las Vegas Review-Journal talking about these warheads. They were just casually dropping like 25-30 miles away from the town. How all these kids remember watching the mushroom clouds through the window of that old schoolhouse with celluloid 3D glasses on to protect their eyes, and this woman who ended up having tons of tumors in her early 20s, as well as so many others in Goodsprings that died of cancer or had other health problems. Super grim and messed up, but I mean, definitely something Vault-Tec would be doing, that's for sure. However, the crown jewel of this town, the Pioneer Saloon, it is a historical gold mine just in itself. In constant operation since 1913, it played host to several infamous murders and prohibition raids over the years, but most interesting to me is that it holds this special memorial room inside to legendary actress Carole Lombard and her husband Clark Gable. This is because Lombard tragically died along with 21 others in a plane crash at nearby Potosi Mountain in 1942, an extremely high-profile story at the time. And the Pioneer Saloon as well as the town hotel were used as the headquarters for the search and rescue efforts in the days afterward. Locals claim that Clark Gable sat at the bar here drinking for days on end, anxiously awaiting word on his wife's status. Tragic, depressing, but somehow also appropriate in its association to this series. And though Fallout fans have really taken to the Pioneer and Goodsprings at large, it was actually used for years as a filming location on some pretty high-profile projects. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Miss Congeniality 2, The Twilight Zone, and I'm sure tons of other stuff that I'm not aware of. However, I do think that from here on out, Fallout fans have definitively claimed Goodsprings, as in 2022, a brand new tradition was born called New Vegas Day. Shout out to TKS Mantis, a great YouTuber, for all this footage, as he was literally there. People came from all over the country, probably all over the world, to don homemade cosplays. Grab a beer at the Pioneer, meet some of the eccentric locals, and just appreciate the reality of Goodsprings. And by all accounts, it was an incredible time. Fans were super respectful and positive to the town. There was a live band playing a bunch of Fallout bangers, good food, people making new friends. TKS says that the organizers thought maybe 40 or 50 would show up because it's just so difficult to get out there, but over 500 ended up attending. And in the years since that, well, it's gone nuclear. At the 2024 meetup, north of 4,000 people showed up, some in utterly fantastic cosplays. I mean, look at Mr. House. They got the damn Highwayman from Fallout 2 out there. The production value is getting crazier. And it's so cool to me to see this positive, kind of awkward, nerdy-ass community like this be embraced by this old, rugged, mining ghost town. Maybe with Fallout Season 2 having something to do with New Vegas, there can be even more events. I just hope it brings people to Goodsprings overall, more business, more money, and more opportunity, because that place deserves it. Now, many sources on the internet claim that when Sawyer and writer Chris Avallone visited the town during development, they ended up basing certain characters on real-life people that they met. This dude, Gordy Siddons, who hangs out at the Pioneer all day, is supposedly the real-life Easy Pete. Siddons was quoted saying, "I thought he looked just like me. Acts like me too. He never leaves the bar." But it's worth noting that Josh Sawyer has declined several times that they spoke to anyone while in town in that way, so believe what you will. But for me, I'm gonna embrace the idea that Pete is out there for real.
I don't know about you, but I take comfort in that.
It's customary for me in the Worldpedia series to highlight what I like to call my favorite nook. My personal preferred little spot that I just enjoy for whatever story or design reason. And when it comes to Goodsprings, it is right up here on the top of the hill, at the edge of the Goodsprings Cemetery, where the courier's life was nearly ended before this story could ever begin. Where right in front of you lies the skyline of New Vegas at a safe distance, silent, almost pleasant to look at, but representative of all the bullshit you gotta go deal with. The Platinum Chip, Mr. House, Benny the Legion, and whatever else, and yet behind you lies the security of home. It really evokes that feeling of, yeah, it would be nice to stay, to disappear here with the other folks and live the quiet life, but no, I gotta go. I gotta go figure out who tried to kill me and why. I gotta get my ass kicked by some Deathclaws. I gotta go live my life. And I think it's wonderful when a specific spot in a video game is able to give the player that sort of feeling. Just amazing stuff. I mentioned in the opening that this is one of the Fallout franchise's most beloved locations, but now that we've reached the end, I think it might be the most beloved. And ultimately, it's because there's just nothing else quite like it. All of the other games in this series have starting areas that, well, aren't the best. Many of them end up getting destroyed or corrupted in some way as well. Now, of course, with the player's actions in New Vegas, there are several possible endings that aren't so good for Goodsprings, like if you just murder everyone, for instance, or you side with the NCR, Republic taxes end up hurting this place. But every other possible ending, if you align yourself with Caesar, Mr. House, or even the Yes Man, Goodsprings is able to not just continue on, but thrive, doing its own little thing. So all I ask of you is the next time you're starting up a playthrough, even if you're a seasoned veteran, just take a second to slow down and appreciate these humble beginnings. Do that tutorial you feel like you don't really need. Fix up Trudy's old radio, punch Chet in the face for me, and pick up that snow globe up in the cemetery. Because sometimes, the best thing you can do when faced with the overwhelming weight of being the main character is to take a note from old Pete here and just take it easy.